Story 1. I found a rubber wrapper in my wife's car even though we don't use them, and now I'm terrified of what I might find out if I confront her about it. My wife, 34F, and I, 35M, have been together for about 10 years and married for 6. We have no kids at the moment, but we were planning to start trying pretty much now. We are both very active, going to the gym, eating healthy, and are both in relatively great shape. My wife is gorgeous with a phenomenal body, but I would probably consider myself maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10 on the attractiveness scale. I realize that. But we have always had a really strong relationship. We started as great friends, realized we were just right for each other, and that developed into true romantic love and devotion. The intimacy was always fantastic. There were never any issues there with quality or frequency. Well, I was washing my wife's car, as I do pretty often. In the course of cleaning the interior, I found an open, empty rubber wrapper under her passenger seat. But we don't use protection since she had always been on birth control. I am driving myself insane with all the stories and scenarios running through my brain. She spends a lot of time at the gym working with weights and doing her cardio. For 3 hours, usually 4 days a week, so there are frequent times when we are apart. She has never given me a reason to suspect she has been unfaithful. I know I have to confront her, but I'm scared to death of what might be the truth. She is my world, and I can't imagine starting a family with anyone else. I'm afraid I'm going to break. Edit to add, wow. I didn't think this would blow up. I just wanted to add some details to save me from having to reply to all the common comments. My wife has never given me a reason to think she has cheated before this. She has always been so loving and affectionate, and we were looking forward to starting a family very soon. Some have speculated that kids coming soon may have led her to one last fling. I don't know. Possibly. Also, we are an open book to each other with our finances pretty much entirely tied up as one. She comes from a pretty upper-middle-class background, and her parents are very comfortable. I come from a home where my parents were fighting their own demons, and so I didn't get a lot of attention growing up. Not a criticism. It was easy to get lost in the shuffle of my parents' problems. We are cordial, but not super close. I am way closer to her family, and I love her mom and dad and younger sister. Financially, we are fine. Together, we make about $150,000 per year. She makes $60,000 as a law firm assistant, and I make $90,000 as an auto technician. We own a house together that we were able to purchase with a down payment from her family. If worst comes to worst, I have no interest in fighting for that money. It is theirs, and they can have it back if we end up selling the house. Some have commented about the amount of time she is at the gym. We go to separate gyms. She gets off work at 4 and goes straight to the gym where she does a class, then works out with weights and the cardio on the treadmill. I was never suspicious of the time she spends there. By the time she gets home, I am already there, and she jumps directly in the shower, and then we make dinner together and hang out. As far as a lawyer or an investigator, there's no way I could do that in secret with the way we manage our finances, so that's out of the picture for now. Someone explained to me how to get detailed phone records, so that's my next step. I will get the records when I have some time to myself and see if there is a number that she's in contact with a lot that I do recognize. I'll try to figure out where to go from there and let you all know. First update, 22 hours later, lots of folks asked for an update. Not a whole lot to say, but things are getting interesting. I am shaking as I type this. Thanks to everyone in the comments and the DMs for the empathy and well wishes. A lot of good tips and advice, too. First off, I found a wrapper. Not an actual used rubber, so the suggestion of DNA testing was not useful. And thanks to one of the commenters for the information about getting detailed phone records. Today at work during some break time, I requested a download of the phone records, but it says the request could take up to 45 days. I can't wait that long. I also drove by her work on my lunch break. I don't know why or what I expected, but her car was there as it normally is. Lots of good advice to track her, get a VR, look at her phone without her knowing, hire an investigator, a lawyer, etc. I can't deal with this. I am taking the advice a lot of you had, and I'm just going to confront her today when she gets home. As some of you suggested, I plan to just put the rubber wrapper on the table in plain sight and watch her body language. I'm so scared and nervous I'm almost pissing my pants. I am really starting to expect the worst. For me, If she cheated, there is zero chance we will stay married. I don't care what excuses or reasons or whatever she has. I am 100% done. No therapy, no counseling, nothing. I can't believe I am typing this. It makes it seem real. I can't imagine her screwing some other guy or guys. That's an image I could never get out of my head for the rest of my life. As far as assets, we don't have a lot. We have a pretty nice house that her dad helped us pay for. I'm happy to let her have it with my fair share and paying back her father. Otherwise is bullcrap like 2 cars, some furniture, and some decent savings that we have both contributed to, so I'm willing to split 50-50. The thought of divorce is burning a pit in my gut. I'll post again after I confront her. Either way, I think this whole thing comes to a conclusion tonight. Mini update, 3 hours later. Now what? Okay, instead of sitting here pissing my pants, I wanted to just type a few more things to keep busy. I'm sitting here trying to find any other reason to doubt her. Dashcam? Yes, I've checked the dashcam footage. Nothing suspicious or out of the ordinary. Commutes to work, the gym, and home. Maybe a stop or two for typical errands. Grocery store, cleaners, zero suspicious activity. But she knows there is a dashcam too, so who knows? Maybe she's just being really careful. Our current state of relationship? It's really strong as far as I know. She comes home, we share a glass of wine while we make dinner together, talk about our day, cuddle on the couch if we watch a show. We really have what anyone from the outside would be jealous. No feelings of distance, no hiding of phone, and no drop-off in intimacy, which has always been and still is great. Her gym time? With as much as she does, it is really reasonable for her to spend 2.5 hours at the gym. I've gone with her. I've seen her work out. It's pretty extensive, and her body shows it. I am so proud of how great she looks, and how she takes such good care of herself, and encourages me, and cares about our health. I've never been suspicious about it, maybe foolishly. Yes, she comes home and showers right away, but she's typically sweaty and feels gross. She doesn't avoid me when she walks in. She will typically come over and greet me with a kiss on the lips, and then hit the shower. If she was just screwing around with a side piece, I think she would be more discreet. We spend almost all of our time together on the weekends. Go for a jog, date nights, happy hour with friends, dinners with family, etc. She has a lot of girlfriends from work, and they sometimes go out for a girls' night like once every 2 months. But again, nothing suspicious. I see the credit card charges, so I don't believe she is hiding anything. And her girlfriends are all awesome, and I love hanging out with them and their husbands and boyfriends. I'm torn and getting nervous about talking to her tonight, but I gotta get this over with. Final update, 7 hours later. This should be my final post on this topic. I took a lot of your advice and decided to just confront her tonight. Sorry for the length, but it was a lot. So my wife came home from the gym about 6:45 like always. I was sitting at the kitchen table alone. She came over, said hi, kissed me on the lips, and went off to take a shower, pretty much like usual. I'm not gonna lie. When she came over to kiss me, I smelled really hard for any evidence of man's scents. Cologne, soap, deodorant, sweat, anything. But I got nothing. As she showered, I sat by myself, a ball of anxiety, and damn near chickened out. She got out of the shower and came into the kitchen, wet hair, sweats, and t-shirt, looking beautiful as usual. She sat down like we always do and expected to chat about our day. She could see immediately something was wrong. She asked what's up. I was shaking and so nervous like you could not believe. I asked, have you lent your car to anyone recently? No. Have you had any passengers in your car the last few weeks? She thought for a second and said no. I asked, has anyone besides you or me been in your car the last few weeks? She said no. What the hell is going on? I asked to see her phone. She looked at me weird, said okay, and just slid the phone to me across the table, no hesitation, and said, what the heck is going on? I didn't touch her phone. I took the rubber wrapper out of my pocket and set it on the table. She looked at it but had no real visible reaction. I didn't say a word. After a few seconds, she said, what the hell is that? I said, it's a rubber wrapper. She said, it's obviously a rubber wrapper. What the hell is a rubber wrapper doing on our kitchen table? She was starting to get annoyed. She is either a really good actor or she sincerely had no idea what was happening. I told her I found it under her car seat while I was cleaning her car. She honestly looked dumbfounded. She said she had no idea how it got there. She really seemed sincere and was starting to get concerned. She asked if I thought it was hers. I said, "I'm not sure, is it?" She said, "You have got to be kidding me. You seriously think I'm screwing around on you? Are you crazy? What the hell is wrong with you?" She took her phone and waved it at me and said, "Here, please. Look at my phone. Call my sister, who she shares everything with. Call any of my friends. I'm not sure what you want me to say." We sat in silence, very uncomfortable for a minute or two. I didn't take my eyes off her, looking for any sign like a tear. I said, "What would you think if the roles were reversed?" She admitted she would probably be suspicious, but would give me the benefit of the doubt. She literally went through every day the past couple of weeks, where she went, who she was with, what she was doing, trying to come up with any explanation. She finally remembered an after-work thing that they did for a friend of hers, a baby shower kind of thing at a restaurant after work. One of the girls at her office was invited, but couldn't go, and so she asked my wife to please take her gifts to the party. My wife said sure. They walked down to my wife's car to put the gifts in, and my wife's stuff was in the front passenger seat. As I said, the car she drives, Infiniti Q60, has a tiny back seat, and access to that back seat is ridiculously difficult. As her friend was putting the gifts in, she spilled her purse all over the floor behind the passenger seat. That was the only possibility she could think of. As I sat there, she insisted we call that friend immediately, and she did just that. She put her friend on speakerphone. She asked her if she remembered when she spilled her purse. She answered yes. She asked if she was sure she got everything picked up off the floor. She answered, "I think so." Why? My wife then seriously asks, "Do you and her boyfriend's name use rubbers?" Her friend kind of chuckled and said yes. My wife asks what brand, and she answered Trojans. Same size too. My wife looked straight into my eyes and asked, "When you dumped your purse in my car, is there a chance there were rubbers in it?" Her friend said yes. "It's not unusual for me to have rubbers in my purse." Why? My wife told her friend about the wrapper. Her friend said she doesn't know why she would have an empty wrapper in her purse, but it is certainly possible. She hung up the phone and looked at me and asked if I would like to go through her phone. I said no, and she asked, "Mystery solved." I literally started crying. I was crying because I was so freaking relieved. I was crying because I am married to the most awesome woman in the world who loves me more than anything. And I was crying because I was racked with guilt that I thought she could be cheating. I felt miserable for how I must have made her feel. My incredible wife took it so well. She hit me with her dish towel and said, "Jesus Christ. I cannot believe you could think I would cheat on you." But she admitted again, she may have felt the same in my shoes. She even laughed a little and said it was kind of cute that I was so jealous and nervous about asking her about it. We decided to have our glass of wine and go out for dinner. At dinner, we talked about how excited we were to start trying for a baby. I am 1000% sure she is telling the truth. I know her. I know her like nobody else. I know her body language. I know her voice and how it sounds when she is stressed or hiding something. There was none of that. I hope none of you have to go through this, but thanks for all the well wishes. I will probably let my wife read this thread at some point, but not while it's still so fresh. Plus, she'll probably rib me for going to Reddit for advice. She's not necessarily a fan. Haha, so all is good. Really, really good. Have a great life, everyone. Story 2. I wasn't invited to any of my siblings' weddings, so I decided not to invite them to mine. I have 4 older siblings, all of whom are married. None of them invited me to their weddings because each one chose to have a ceremony without children. I thought I might be the exception since I'm their brother. But the first one to get married was my older sister, Leonarda. Her wedding was child-free, and the others followed her lead. When Leonarda got married, I was 10. So I understood why I wasn't invited, but I was still very upset. She married a man I liked, and I wasn't even there to see it. My next sister, Fernanda, got married when I was 12. Again, I wasn't invited, but I still didn't mind much because I was a well-behaved child. My brother Bernardo got married when I was 15. At first, he didn't want a child-free wedding, but the family convinced him to exclude all kids because it was easier. When I asked him to make an exception for me since I was 15, he said no. He said it wouldn't be fair to the other children. I was upset and yelled at him that it wasn't fair that I couldn't attend any of my siblings' weddings. My parents got mad at me and grounded me for 6 months. Finally, my youngest sister, Gustava, got married when I was 17. By then, I didn't care anymore, because I knew it would be another child-free wedding, and I'd be excluded. And I was right. I didn't ask about it. And my cousin, who had just turned 18, was invited, but I wasn't. I didn't care. So I just sent a short message to congratulate her and ignored everything else. My parents got mad because I didn't congratulate them properly. I ignored them and spent all my time in my room with my fiancé. Now that I'm getting married, I decided not to invite any of my siblings to my wedding since they didn't invite me to theirs. When they realized they weren't invited, they started asking questions in the family group chat. Bernardo asked if there was a problem with the mail, and Fernanda directly asked why she didn't get an invitation. I just read the messages and ignored them because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of a quick response. The next day, my mom called. As soon as I answered, she immediately started asking why I didn't invite my siblings, sounding angry like I had done something wrong. I took a deep breath and calmly told her, they didn't invite me to their weddings, so I thought it was fair to return the favor. There was silence on the other end of the phone as she tried to understand what I said. Then she exploded. She asked if my fiancé had influenced me, saying I was always so sweet but now I seem like a stranger. I almost laughed nervously because, as I was as usual, my mom blamed someone else instead of accepting that I might be right. I told her, it's not about her. Mom, this is my decision. They never made me feel important enough to include me in their most special moments, so I don't see why they should be at mine. She hung up on me, which was typical. The next day, the messages kept coming. Leonardo sent me a dramatic message saying, Mario, I know you felt hurt about not being invited to my wedding, but you were just a child. It wasn't personal. I thought you would have gotten. How could she say that? They ignored me during all the important moments of their lives, and now they expected me to just get over it. I replied, it's not about getting over it. It's about what's fair. If I wasn't important enough to be at their weddings, why should they be at mine? It seemed fair to me. Her reply came quickly, and it was even more ridiculous. She called me a spoiled brat and said that family should always come before resentment. Now, they wanted to pretend we were a close family, but where was that closeness when I was a little boy begging to go to their weddings? Things got worse when my parents decided to have an intervention. They showed up at my house without warning, thinking they could change my mind. As soon as they started talking, it was clear they cared more about what people would think than about me. My mom said, what will people think of us? Mario? What kind of person doesn't invite their own siblings to their wedding? She spoke like I had done something terrible. I tried to explain again that this was about all the years of ignoring me, but my dad interrupted, calling me childish and selfish. That's when I lost my patience. I said childish and selfish? I was a child when I begged to go to their weddings, and everyone said I was dramatic. Now, as an adult, they want to pretend that never happened. I'm sorry, but I'm not changing my mind. They're not coming to my wedding, and if you keep treating me like this, neither will you. The room went silent. My mom looked like she might faint, and my dad turned bright red. Without saying anything else, they left and slammed the door. In the weeks that followed, they called me spiteful and ungrateful. My siblings tried to make me feel guilty, saying I was ruining the family. Bernardo even tried to appeal emotionally, saying my nieces were excited about the wedding, and it would be cruel to leave them out. This time, I ignored them. On my wedding day, I felt a huge sense of relief. The ceremony was exactly how I wanted it, light, full of love, and surrounded by people who truly cared about me. As I danced with my wife, I thought about how, for the first time, I had control over my life. Later, I found out that my mom had organized a separate dinner for my siblings on the same day as a kind of silent protest. I found it pathetic. They could comfort themselves however they wanted, but it wouldn't change the fact that, for the first time, I had stood up for myself, and that was liberating. After the wedding, I thought everything would settle down, It felt like a turning point in my life. The flowers, the music, the food, and the people there were perfect, all surrounded by genuine love. I didn't feel the absence of anyone. But, as always, peace didn't last. A few days later, the comments started. First, there were indirect remarks in the family group chat. Bernardo was the first, saying, "We saw some pictures of your wedding. Why did those flowers look so basic?" I tried to ignore it, but it started to irritate me. Then Fernanda added, "And the venue? I don't know. It looked more like an impromptu party than a wedding. You could have asked us for help. Didn't she know I had blocked everyone from my social media? How had they seen the photos? It turned out they got them through mutual friends, which bothered me even more. Not only had they invaded a moment I had deliberately excluded them from, but they were also criticizing something they hadn't even experienced. I took a deep breath and forced myself not to respond, but it was hard. The last straw came when my mom called. She didn't waste any time with small talk. When I answered the phone, my mom immediately started criticizing me. "Mario, what was that wedding? I saw the pictures, and honestly, I expected more from you. Everything looked so simple, nothing like your siblings' weddings. That suit, you deserved something more glamorous. Why didn't you have it in a church? Your brother had something much nicer. That wedding didn't seem worthy of our family." For a moment I was speechless, not because I agreed, but because I was shocked by how rude she was. I tried not to explode, and when I finally spoke, my voice was cold. "Mom, the only thing that wasn't worthy here was you. You weren't even invited, yet you feel entitled to criticize. You saw pictures of something you shouldn't have seen. If you didn't like it, fine, because I didn't plan anything to please you." She got angry, but didn't back down. "You're being so selfish, Mario. Really? Do you think you can just cut us out of your life? That's not normal. You've always been resentful, and now you're taking it out on us. What did we do to deserve this?" That was the last straw. I couldn't stay calm anymore. "What did you do?" "Let's refresh our memories, Mom. You ignored me during the most important moments of my life. I was never important enough to be at my own siblings' weddings. But now you expect me to include you in mine, as if nothing happened. That's hypocrisy. And the most ironic thing? The only thing that could have ruined my wedding was inviting you." There was silence on the phone. I thought maybe she'd finally understood, but no. She took a deep breath and said with contempt, "You're ungrateful. We did everything for you, and this is how you repay us. You're abandoning your family for a woman who barely just came into your life. You'll regret this." I hung up before she could say more. I was tired of arguing with someone who would never admit their mistakes. But the drama didn't stop there. My siblings, clearly encouraged by my mom, started sending me nonstop messages in the family group chat. Bernardo wrote, "You've destroyed the family, Mario. Congratulations on pushing away everyone who ever loved you." Fernanda, as always, made a show of it. "I hope the wife you chose is worth it because you've lost everything for her." I read everything silently while my wife watched, knowing it hurt me, but not wanting to get involved. After a few minutes, I left the group chat without replying. It wasn't worth it. The next days were full of private messages and calls, all of which I ignored. My mom even showed up at my door unannounced, but I didn't let her in. "Mom, there's no point. You only know how to criticize and belittle me. I don't want any more of that in my life," she yelled from outside. "Family is forever, Mario. You can't just eliminate us because you're hurt." I opened the door just enough to reply. Family should mean support, respect, and love, not manipulation and constant criticism. If that's all you have to offer, then yes, I can eliminate you from my life. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I closed the door while she kept yelling, but I didn't pay attention. I had already made my decision. Since then, I've cut off all contact with them. The few times they tried to reach out, it was with more accusations and criticism, but I no longer had the patience for it. Now my life is focused on me and my wife. We've built a relationship based on respect and love, everything my family never gave me. Looking back, I know walking away was the best decision. I don't miss anything, and I don't feel guilty. I'm finally at peace, living a happy life and knowing I don't owe anything to people who never truly valued me. My life is calmer and happier than I ever imagined it could be since I cut off contact with my family. I feel like I can finally breathe. My wife and I are focused on building a solid life based on love and respect, something I never had with my family. Recently, something very special happened. We found out my wife is pregnant. It was an amazing moment when we saw the positive result. Tears filled my eyes, and my wife hugged me tightly, saying, "We're going to raise this baby with so much love that they'll never want for anything." From the start, we knew our child would only be surrounded by people who truly cared for them, which meant my family had no place in their life. However, as always, news travels fast. I'm not sure how they found out, maybe through a distant relative or a mutual acquaintance, but soon I started receiving messages. The first one was from my mom, Mario. "I heard about the baby. I want you to know that despite everything, we're your family, and it's important for the baby to have their grandparents around." I didn't reply. My wife and I had already decided that they wouldn't have any contact with our child. It wasn't because I wanted to be cruel, but because I couldn't risk exposing my child to the same toxic behavior I had endured all my life. After my mom's message, my siblings started messaging too. Bernardo, as usual, tried to manipulate me. "Congratulations on the baby, Mario. Despite all the fights, we're siblings and I know you'll need support. We're here for you and the baby." Fernanda, of course, was more direct. "Hold on to your grudge if you want, but at least let us meet our niece or nephew. They deserve to know they have a big family." I read everything in silence, while my wife, as always, stood by my side. She took my hand and said, "You don't have to reply. You don't owe them anything. This is our moment, and we only need those who truly care about us." She was right. The following week, my mom showed up at our house unannounced. When I opened the door and saw her with an expression that seemed like regret, my heart clenched for a moment, but I didn't let it affect me. Before she could say anything, I was direct. "Mom, don't. Insist. You're not a part of my life, and you won't be a part of my child's life either." She tried to argue. "Mario, you can't do this. We're your family. This baby is part of us too." I replied firmly, "I'm not going to let my child go through what I went through. I want them to grow up surrounded by true love, without manipulation, without criticism, without emotional games. That's something you and the others never knew how to offer." She started to cry, but I knew those tears weren't real regret. They were because she wasn't getting what she wanted. Before she could continue, I closed the door. It was painful, but it was necessary. Since then, the messages and attempts at contact have continued, but they no longer affect me. My focus now is on my wife's pregnancy and our baby. We're planning everything with so much love and care, and I can't wait to start this new chapter of our lives. Some might say it's selfish to keep my family away from the baby, but for me, this is about protection. I won't allow any toxic influence near my child. Today, I am at peace with my decision. I know my child will grow up in a safe and loving home, and that's all that matters. My family can keep blaming me and saying I'm wrong, but I don't care anymore. For the first time, I have control over my life and the life we're bringing into the world, and that is freeing. As my wife's pregnancy progressed, we created a peaceful bubble around ourselves. Our home became a sanctuary of joy and anticipation. We painted the nursery together, chose furniture, and spent evenings reading parenting books. Everything was perfect until my sister Leonarda somehow got our new address. One day, a large package arrived. Inside was an expensive baby bassinet with a note for my future niece or nephew. Family heirloom should be passed down. Leonarda. My wife found me staring at it, hands shaking. Without a word, she helped me pack it back up. We donated it to a local women's shelter the same day. But Leonardo's gift opened the floodgates. Soon, packages started arriving from all my siblings. Fernanda sent designer baby clothes. Bernardo shipped a handmade rocking chair that he claimed took him months to craft. Gustavo mailed photo albums of our childhood, filled with sticky notes pointing out happy family memories I should remember. Each gift felt like a weapon, carefully chosen to pierce through the walls I'd built. My wife noticed how each package affected me, how I'd grow quiet and distant. One evening, After a particularly difficult day when my mom had sent a box full of my own baby things, my wife sat me down. "They're trying to buy their way back into our lives," she said softly, her hand resting on her growing belly. "But we don't owe them access to our child just because they're sending gifts." She was right, of course. That night, we drafted a formal cease and desist letter with help from our lawyer. It felt extreme, but necessary. The gift stopped, but the emotional warfare continued through other channels. My siblings started a social media campaign, sharing old family photos and writing long posts about family healing and forgiveness. They tagged mutual friends trying to pressure me through our social circle. Some distant relatives I barely knew started messaging me about doing the right thing. The final straw came during my wife's baby shower. We'd carefully planned it with our chosen family, close friends who'd supported us through everything. But halfway through the celebration, my mom and sisters showed up uninvited, carrying more gifts and wearing sad, martyred expressions. I saw my wife's face tighten with anxiety, watched our friends shift uncomfortably. Before they could make a scene, I met them at the door. "This is a private event," I said firmly. "You need to leave." "We're family," my mom protested, trying to push past me. "You can't keep us from celebrating our grandchild." "This isn't your grandchild," I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You lost that privilege when you chose to treat me like a stranger for most of my life. Security will escort you out if necessary." Leonardo tried emotional manipulation one last time. "Mario, please. We've all made mistakes. When you become a parent, you'll understand the importance of family." "No," I said, feeling stronger than ever. "When I become a parent, I'll understand how crucial it is to protect my child from toxic relationships, even if they're family, especially if they're family." They left, but not before making sure everyone heard their tearful protests. Later, my wife squeezed my hand and whispered, "You did the right thing." Our true friends rallied around us, sharing stories of their own experiences with family boundaries, making us feel less alone. The months that followed were peaceful. We took birthing classes, prepared our home, and focused on the joy of becoming parents. My wife's pregnancy progressed beautifully, and watching her grow with our child filled me with more love than I'd ever known. When she went into labor, we had our birth plan ready. The hospital staff knew exactly who was allowed in, and more importantly, who wasn't. My wife's parents, who had always respected our boundaries and shown us genuine love, were our only family support. Our son was born on a crisp autumn morning, perfect and healthy, with 10 tiny fingers and 10 tiny toes. As I held him for the first time, looking into his curious eyes, I made a silent promise. He would never know the pain of exclusion, the sting of conditional love, or the weight of family manipulation. The messages started pouring in as soon as word got out. Congratulations mixed with guilt trips, joy tainted with manipulation. Bernardo sent a particularly nasty text, "Your son will grow up ashamed of how you've torn this family apart." I looked at my newborn son, sleeping peacefully in my wife's arms, and felt nothing but certainty. He would grow up surrounded by authentic love, not the performance of family loyalty my siblings had perfected. As weeks passed, we settled into life with our baby. Every milestone was celebrated by people who genuinely cared for us. His first smile, first laugh, first time rolling over, all witnessed by our chosen family who showed up with food, help, and unconditional support. When he was 3 months old, my mom made one final attempt. She appeared at our door, clutching a handmade blanket and crying, "Please, Mario, let me hold my grandson just once. I'm his grandmother." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same woman who had dismissed my pain for years, who had chosen appearances over love, who had never once apologized for the real hurt she'd caused. "No, Mom," I said gently. "You're not his grandmother. You're just the woman who taught me exactly what kind of parent I don't want to be." She left the blanket on our doorstep. We donated it, like all the other gifts, and continued building our life. Our son is 6 months old now, thriving in an environment of consistent love and respect. He'll never know the pain of being the excluded child, the family afterthought. Sometimes, friends ask if I worry about him missing out on extended family. I look at our home, filled with photos of the people who choose to love us properly, friends who became family, my wife's parents who show up with respect and joy, neighbors who bring casseroles and genuine care. He's not missing anything, I tell them. He's surrounded by real family. Last week we received an invitation to Leonardo's daughter's wedding. It was clearly a peace offering, an attempt to bridge the gap. My wife found me looking at it, lost in thought. "What are you thinking?" she asked, our son babbling happily in her arms. I took the invitation and dropped it in the recycling bin. "I'm thinking about cycles," I said, reaching for our boy, "and how proud I am that we broke them." She smiled, understanding completely. Our son will grow up knowing his worth isn't measured by family name or tradition, but by the authentic connections he builds. He'll learn that love shouldn't come with conditions, that family is earned through actions, not claimed through blood. As I write this, he's sleeping peacefully in his crib, surrounded by the drawings and photos of people who love him unconditionally. There are no family heirlooms in his room, no antique furniture weighed down by obligation. Instead, every item was chosen with care and joy by people who have proven their love through respect and understanding. The journey hasn't been easy, but it has been worth it. Every time I look at my son's innocent face, I know we made the right choice. He will grow up free from the burden of toxic family dynamics, free to choose his own path, free to understand that love should lift you up, not weigh you down, and that's the greatest gift I could give him, the freedom to be loved exactly as he is, by people who know how to love properly. Story 3. Ex-husband left me for his younger work wife while I was pregnant. Now she lost their baby and is harassing me while he tried to effers himself on me. I'll fix the grammar later, fake names and throw away. So my 36F ex-husband Tom, 35M, left me for his work wife Tammy, 25F 2 years ago. I never liked her even before I found out about their relationship. The first time I met her at a work event, she told me while I was heavily pregnant, "My youngest, better up your wife game, or I might steal him off you." Well, 3 months later, she did. This woman literally came with him to help pack the day he moved out and tried to have a one-on-one conversation on how she wanted our relationship going forward because she was going to be in my life. Then said, as a joke, "Told you I'd steal him away, not gonna lie." I'm thankful she did, because when my ex made a comment about her being 23 and her brain not being fully developed, I got the ex so bad it turned my heartbreak into relief. I got everything in the divorce because I got him in his affair fog and gave 50-50 custody for our kids' sake. I'm civil for the sake of my kids so we can both attend events without drama, but other than that, I couldn't honestly care less about them. Around June, Tammy came instead of Tom for pick and practically skipped towards me to show off her engagement ring, saying she wanted me as a bridesmaid along with my daughters for something I didn't catch because I was in a rush to get our cat to the vet. She got upset because I just said him her whole conversation per Tom's text a few hours. Same happened again in September when she told me she was pregnant, which again, my zero fucks given upset her. In December, when she told me the second I opened the car door, "Tom's finally getting a son," to which I sarcastically replied, "I'm sure Lord Tom's excited for an heir to take over his lands and titles," which caused drama too because Tom's family found it hilarious when Tammy was bad-mouthing me. December was the last time I saw her till today at drop-offs with Tom. As they approached me, I noticed Tammy didn't look pregnant anymore. Tammy tearfully said we lost the baby. I didn't answer, just told Tom our second daughter has a birthday party tomorrow at 3, and the oldest has gymnastics at 5. Tammy literally screamed at me I was a heartless bitch and bitter, then grabbed the girls' bags, walking away. Tom said I could show a little humanity towards Tammy, and regardless of my feelings, she is my kid's stepmother. I told Tom I don't care about what he going through because outside our kids I don't care about them, and I don't owe Tammy anything, especially pity. He called me an asshole, along with other things, and left. Usually this wouldn't bother me, but my ex-in-laws, who I have a good relationship, have told me I should have shown Tammy some empathy and at the very least pretended to care for the sake of the kids. Comments where Op has replied, "Imposter. Syndrome 412. So you're supposed to show empathy to someone who ruined your marriage and goes out of their way to get a reaction out of you?" No. NTA. Oop. She said she wanted to friends and tells people like my in-laws that I can't put the past behind me for the sake of the kids, even called me a pick-me. Beneficial_syrup_869. He's no longer your problem. He's hers until she becomes too old for him. Enjoy your life. That's the best revenge. Oop. I'm enjoying my life, honestly, single life as Sue. Underrated. I adopted 2 senior cats last week because I found out at my local book club our shelter has an end-of-life event every month, so you can give a senior cat a loving home before the end. I think when my kids are grown, I'm gonna be the local cat lady. Everyone thinks is a witch. Illuminate 90. NTA. You should have filed for more custody. He isn't mentally well. She doesn't deserve shit. Better person than me, 'cause when she said that at the party/first meeting, I'd have broke her nose if I was the same sex. You owe neither of them anything aside from the little human interaction needed to make sure the kids are taken care of. He is a piece of shit, and she a terrible human, who I'm sure I'm gonna get flack for this bit, but got what she had coming. Karma. You are cordial, and don't deny their father access to them 50-50. I'm gonna take on good faith you don't badmouth him in your home when he isn't there, but the kids are. Interactions out of sight and earshot of the kids that are not sugar, rainbows, and unicorns are not on you to make sure they are. She is an adulterer, home wrecker, self-centered narcissist who has been trying to rub this in your face and use your kids' emotions and well-being as a shield for herself from the consequences. Fuck her. Oop. No. I'd never badmouth him to the kids. Ever, don't get me wrong, at the start of everything I did. Shit-talk them both with my family and friends, but now couldn't care less about them. Our oldest is 13, then we have a 12,7 and 2-year-old, so I'm gonna let them form their own opinions as they grow older about them. I will say Tammy is a good stepmom, to which I'm glad. Frog say so. I still wouldn't trust Tammy not to try to poison them against you out of spite. Oop. My girls are extremely smart, and my oldest told her father I've never said a bad word about him to them, so she wouldn't stand for it either, nor would she tell them any information about me. Both Tom and Tammy have asked multiple questions about me in the past to the kids, and they tried to convince them I was a bad person during the bridesmaid situation my oldest told me and her grandmother, ex-Mill. I told my ex I'd take him back to court if it ever happened again, and his family said they'd back me. Update 1, February 3, 2024. So I texted Tom today due to Tammy's mental state. I prefer if he or his mom would do all the picks up from now on, and if Tammy's mental health gets any worse, I want the girls full-time for a couple of weeks till it's a healthier environment for the kids. Tom tried to call me, but I texted him. I prefer texts, and he said, wanted to have a heart-to-heart. Yeah, not gonna happen. I asked, did it involve the girls? But he said yes. But it's also about all of us going forward, and the relationship he wishes for us to have. Basically, he wanted family therapy with himself, me, Tammy, and the kids. I said if he thinks the kids need to see a therapist, I would be happy to find one we both can agree on. But again, he just kept bringing it back to us, so after a few hours knowing it was going nowhere, I just left him on red. I called my ex-in-laws, told them the situation, and how I don't want to be involved with anything Tammy and Tom unless my kids are involved. I reminded them I've expressed multiple times I don't care, and I don't want anything more than a civil co-parent relationship. I told them even though I value my friendship with the family, ex-in-laws, I will go low contact if it happens again. Mill apologized, saying she was very emotional, because at the end of the day, Tom is her son and he was heartbroken, plus the baby was her grandchild, which I completely understand, and I forgive her. Now, here, where it gets weird, Tammy showed up to my house. Now I've watched enough true crime to know not to open the door, and I recorded her by the doorbell cam. She was crying, saying she was sorry, and she just wanted to be my friend. Then she said, I need to forgive her because she lost her baby as karma for what she did to me. She was saying other stuff, but I couldn't understand her. I rang the police, then my brother and Tom. She didn't get arrested or anything, but Tom talked to my brother, said he was taking her home, and agreed. It's best if I have them full-time for now. My girls are at home safe. My brother will be staying with me for the foreseeable future. I'll be seeing a lawyer first time Monday about full custody and a restraining order because I've a sinking feeling it's going to get worse. Before it gets brought up, I just kept telling Tammy leave my property because I don't want to hear it. I don't know why I was brought into this, because I was looking forward to my chill weekend. I'd like to also say, for the people in my last post calling me jealousy/bitter of nothing to be jealous of, someone who cheats on you isn't a prize, he is Tammy's problem now, and for those of you saying my I don't give care about my ex's life, means I'm not over him because I don't want to be friends with him or Tammy. Your ex moved on when they say leave them alone, they're not playing hard to get, they really don't want to talk to you. Comments where Op has replied, duh, true, CRE, I hope it gets better for you. But as you said, and I agree with you, it's going to get worse. I don't understand what it is that people want you to do. He cheated, left, and both of you moved on. Why should you care about his life? If it doesn't involve your children, it doesn't involve you. Your happiness trumps whatever he got going on in his life. Oop. They want me to be the bitter, evil ex-wife to justify themselves, even though I feel nothing towards either of them, like I'd have the same reaction if they told me that day they won the lottery. I've gotten to a place I'm happy with my life and love it. Maybe they think that since I've not gone on a date since the divorce, I'm still not moved on, but I've not dated anyone because I don't want. 2 single life is awesome. Why ruin it? Update 2, February 5, 2024. I won't be updating till all the legal issues are over with, and my own mental health is in a better place, so it could take anything up to 3 to 6 months. I spoke to a lawyer today. I'm obviously not going to go into details, but with all the evidence and witnesses on my side, I've a good shot at getting full custody, but it's only day 1, and nothing has started yet. Tom sexually assaulted me. It didn't go far thanks to my brother, but it's left me very shaken. I agreed to let Tom come over to visit the kids whenever he wanted, so when he came over yesterday evening and went into the garden with the kids, I went for a shower. Coming out of the bathroom, he cornered me about wanting to talk. I told him it wasn't the time and told him either go out to the girls or leave. He started saying he made a mistake. Tammy was a nut job and he wanted to come home to us. I told him, get the fuck out of my house and there is no us, so he started saying stuff. I physically can't type without breaking down, then tried to force a makeout session to put it politely. Thankfully, my brother heard and came running. Unfortunately, the kids heard everything when my brother and Tom started fighting. I was in complete shock at the time to try to do anything to help the situation. Even when Tom was being taken away, I was too scared to move and couldn't confront my crying children, not my proudest moment. Remember, I said before I adopted older cats while I put cameras through common areas in my home to watch them while I'm at work. One of those areas is the hall between my room and the bathroom. I don't know what to do with Tom going forward, but I know I can't face him ever again, even with supervision from my father or brother who both work in law enforcement. Tammy sent hundreds of messages to me and my oldest too, but I can't block her by my lawyer's request. My ex-in-laws have reached out and told me they'll help me with whatever way I need. His sisters have disowned him, but this is still all very new, they might change their mind. I plan on moving after everything gets sorted so I won't ever cross Tammy's path. Thank you all for your love and support. Hopefully I can give you all a positive update in the future. And to the young men sending messages asking for nudes or sending me pictures of your privates, thanks for the laugh, but I'm done with Dick. Comments where Ope has replied. Individual_you_6586. Limey. You poor thing. I am so sorry for you, and very sad that you had to endure this. I hope the children didn't see their dad violating their mother. Crying face. Best of luck in the future. Oop. They didn't see. He told them he went in for drinks, but due to me screaming, they came in and saw my brother started bashing their dad off stuff and calling him a rapist along with other things. Then Tom tried to fight my brother to get away. Just to be clear, my ex didn't get as far as to rape me. Individual_you_6586. Still, it's scary for kids. I can't see why your ex would think this was appropriate when he came over to be with the children. Oop. I don't know. Going though his and Tammy heads to be this focused on me when they should be seeking comfort in each other. But Tom did say I never lost any of his kids when it was happening. Like, if I'm being honest, he was saying some unhinged, creepy things like, I've known the him since I was 14. It was like I was looking at Tom, but at the same time, it wasn't him, if that makes sense. Screaming harpy. Christ on a bike. I thought police involvement would be because of Tammy, not Tom. I thought Tom would try to get you back when he realized how badly screwed up by leaving you for Tammy. But sexual assault is not the way to make a woman think. Hell, yes, let's go. You can come home at once? I'm so glad you had your brother there to rescue you. What the feck is he on that he thought to himself, how do I woo my ex-wife back? I know I'll force myself upon her. That'll make her want me back. Really, Tom? Fecking really? Please don't beat yourself up for freezing, as it's a fairly common reaction to assault. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Please tell me you're pressing charges. I would also suggest counseling for you and your girls when you're ready, as this is going to stay with all of you. Again, I'm so sorry he did this to you. Oop. Yeah, I'm gonna press charges and my kids will get counseling because my oldest is blaming herself and won't leave my side. Now, on to the next story. Story 2. One of my employees had to take 2 days off of work because his father died. A week later, his dad walks into the store. I'm a manager at a shop that's 420 friendly for employees. As long as it doesn't affect your work, we're all a big stoner family. We know who's capable of working high and who isn't. One of my employees is becoming a bit of a chronic liar. He's a bit of a performer, always doing impressions, and generally being a pretty funny guy, but he's a bit of a slacker. I'll call him Scooby. One day, Scooby comes in, uncharacteristically quiet, just looking sad and depressed. He was working slower than usual and not really responding to anybody, in the middle of an otherwise busy kitchen. So he gets pulled outside and tells the owner of the store that his dad just died, and he was reeling from it. He told him not to tell anybody, because he's not the kind of person to spread his emotional baggage around. The owner and I gave him a hug, told him to go home, and take as long as he needs. He comes back a couple of days later, and everything seems all right. A few days later, a man walks into the store and asks to see Scooby. I was wondering if I could see Scooby. That's my son. You're his dad. Yeah, we look alike, don't we? He did. They looked exactly alike. So now we're faced with the situation of this kid being a little liar. I pulled my boss, the owner, aside and asked him what to do. He told me that we're extremely short-handed right now, and letting him go would be counterproductive, because we're in the middle of training 3 people, and letting him go would force the more capable people to work 50-plus hours a week. There's basically 2 to 3 of us, plus the owners. He told me not to say anything to Scooby, and that he and his wife would take care of it. A few weeks have passed now, and I no longer believe a word out of this kid's mouth. Apparently the owners talked to him about his lying, but since then it hasn't really stopped. He's taken off of work from vomiting all the time. At one point, he took 3 Fridays and 2 Saturdays off in a row because of all the vomiting and various digestion issues. He said he went to the doctor, and his doctor told him he was allergic to eggs, so he stopped eating eggs, and then he was okay. Meanwhile, I'll occasionally catch him eating a prepackaged egg sandwich we bring for the employees for their lunch breaks. One time, he came in all sad and depressed again because his girlfriend broke up with him and his productivity slowed down to a crawl. We told him to keep his personal drama at the door and sent him home. That night, I see he and his girlfriend publicly snuggling all over my Facebook feed. I don't know what to do. I can't look this fucking kid in the eye anymore, and my boss won't fire him. Do I just deal with it and keep letting this little shit look at me in my face and lie to me every time he wants to take off of work? Comments, where Op has replied, Upon, talking to the owners about the matter. That's the thing, they already know about it all. It's impossible to lie to me, especially if I've already caught you in a lie. Then when you talk to me, my default position is that you're lying, and I'll go back in and logically catch people in lies. The kid's a terrible liar already, and when he talks to me, he's talking to the goddamn gatekeeper of truth. Not to toot my own horn or anything, lol, but the only way it's affecting my work is that I would occasionally have to cover for, but I told them that if this continues, they would have to cover for him. Because I'm tired of working 6-day weeks and having to come in at 3 a.m. on my day off to open the store because this dude's family are dropping like flies. I just don't know what to do as his boss. Upwin asked if there is an environment of fear and disapproval for asking for time off. Yes. That's what I figured the crux of the issue was at first, but he needs to grow balls and ask for the time off if he really needs it. Unfortunately, he's asking for time off because he just doesn't want to work, and that's what seriously pisses me off about all of this. Just to rant a bit, I invited that fucking kid into my house to smoke some of my weed, telling him how sorry I was for his loss. I genuinely empathized with him, and then his dad fucking walks into the store. And he kept the lie up. He told everybody a different story. He told the bosses and I that that wasn't actually his father, but his uncle, who he calls his father sometimes. It was bullshit, and he admits it by shutting up when called out on it, followed by nothing at all. We call him out, and he falls silent. Then he lies again the next day, and the same shit happens. We embarrass him all the time about his constant lying, and I just don't understand why he keeps doing it. It must be some sort of psychological issue. Upwin asked if the kid can just replace it. We're trying our best to train these new kids, but there's so little time. We've resorted to having people come in at 3 a.m. to dress donuts in a clothes store for 3 hours until it opens. But it's really hard finding people with an availability of 3 a.m. to whenever the fuck. Update 1, February 11, 2015. So it's been about 2 months since I last posted about this incident. A lot of really crazy things have happened, so I'll jump right in. After everything happened with the last post, everybody simply put the dead dad incident in the back of their minds. They were pissed for a while, but they eventually let it go. I was the last one to let it go, but I eventually did. In retrospect, I shouldn't have, because he never once owned up to the lie. He just acted like none of it ever happened. He tried to come up with lies to get out of working holiday shifts he was scheduled for, Christmas, New Year's, but nobody believed him, and he was told that if he didn't show up to these shifts, that he'd be fired. He showed up to the Christmas shift, but he overslept through the New Year's shift. Nobody cared because we ended up not needing him for the shift anyway, and one of the new guys ended up covering for him on call. Everybody was pissed at him again, and he's been on thin ice ever since. Then shit hit the fan in the past few days. A couple of days ago, his apparently psycho girlfriend caught him hanging out in a car with one of our mutual coworkers. She had an absolute breakdown and started pounding on her window. Scooby hops out of the car to calm her down, and the coworker, Sky, drives off. The psycho girlfriend gets in her car and keeps trying to cut Sky off in traffic. At least that's the story I heard from my boss. She eventually lets up, Sky manages to get home safe, and texted Scooby basically cussing him out. Later that night, I make a quick stop by the store owner's house to pick something up for the store, and they tell me that Scooby called them and told them that he wouldn't be able to work for the next few days because he got into a big fight with his girlfriend and she slashed his tires. The next morning, I show up for my shift, and Scooby calls the store. His speech is all slow, mumbled, and he's slurring his words. I immediately think he's strung out on something. He brags about doing acid and other hardish drugs. He tells me this story about how, the night before, after his girlfriend slashed his tires, she calmed down, and they were walking around where they live, in some warehouse district somewhere, apparently, looking for a store to grab money so they can call a tow truck to come get his car. While walking, he and his girlfriend got mugged. He's fine, but they beat her up pretty badly and took all their money. Because of this, he wouldn't be able to work for the next few days, which is Valentine's Day, our busiest day of the year by far. Nobody even wanted to speak to him at that point. So it all came down to this morning. The owner comes in, and I asked her if anyone has spoken to Scooby. Basically, she pulled a string, and his entire wall of lies came crumbling down. I can't make this shit up. So yesterday afternoon, Scooby fucking calls the store with a disguised voice and asks for one of our coworkers, Ashley, who you can read all about here. We have a really dysfunctional family. He asks for her and tells her to meet him out the back of the store with his paycheck that was left for him at the cash register. He did this so that he could avoid having to talk to the owner, while she caught wind of it and showed up out back of the store with his paycheck. But he noticed and literally ran away. He shows up about a half an hour later with fresh scratches on his neck. Because apparently, when you get mugged by a group of guys, they scratch your neck. She confronted him about all of it, told him that she doesn't believe a word he ever says, and that she loves him, and wishes he'd stop making terrible decisions. By the end of the conversation, he basically admitted to all of the lies, and he was finally fired. And thus is the tale of Scooby, the wandering liar. Final comments from OOP. OOP on Scooby. He's the kind of liar where he's so introspective that he thinks his outlandish lies are going to fool anybody. It baffled me. I never knew how this dude was ever getting through his life, but I found out a few things over the course of him working there that proved that he was just a pillar of bad decisions. That was Scooby's trademark. He got arrested a month ago and was put in jail because he fessed up to some shoplifting that his girlfriend did. He was already on probation from some other shit, but he got off on a legal technicality and got off light. But being in jail for 2 days didn't do anything to help Scooby get his shit together. His parents kicked him out of his house, and he's been floating between his girlfriend's house and his ex-girlfriend's house when he and his current girlfriend are fighting. I know, this shit sounds like a bad soap opera, and none of us understands why he's letting himself be put into the situation. He needs his ass kicked by someone who cares about him because he's going down a really bad road. Scooby running from the owner. Apparently he saw her before she got back there, ran behind the wall, ran around the corner to his car before she came through the back door. She saw him fly out of the parking lot in his non-tire slashed car that he spent hours using as an excuse to get out of work. Oop. When asked why a donut shop is busy on Valentine's Day, who knows? It just happened that way. For the past 2 years, the shop has been opened. People like to be creative with their Valentine's Day gifts, so they get donuts instead of flowers and chocolates. Story 4. My family thought it would be funny to leave me stranded in another state. Let's see if he can make it back. They laughed and drove away. I never came back. 15 years later, they found me. 107 missed calls. That summer I turned 22 was supposed to be like any other. Working at my dad's hardware store for shit pay, living at home because college wasn't practical according to Banks, my father, and being the eternal punching bag for my golden child brother Alan. We weren't poor exactly, but we sure as hell weren't the type who took vacations to Disney. So when Banks announced we were taking a family road trip to my uncle's wedding in Colorado, I should have been there. I should have known something was up. 3 days into that nightmare road trip, I was already regretting not making up some excuse to stay home. My dad and Alan had been taking turns with their favorite game, making Salvador's life hell. Mom Irene would occasionally say that's enough in that weak voice of hers, but we all knew it was just for show. Look, I need to explain about my family. Banks wasn't just your standard asshole dad. He was the type who'd wake you up at 3 a.m. to yell about a chore you'd throw away your stuff if it was in his way, who'd been telling me I was worthless since I could understand words. Alan learned quick, either be dad's mini-me or become like me. Guess which path he chose. That morning, we stopped at some nowhere rest area in Colorado, middle of absolutely nothing for miles, just fields, mountains in the distance, and a sad little bathroom building with vending machines. I'd been sleeping in the back of our Suburban and needed to stretch my legs, use the bathroom. Dad and Alan were laughing about something while Mom was checking her makeup in the visor mirror. I remember exactly what I was wearing. Faded Metallica t-shirt, jeans with a hole in one knee, and these beat-up Vans I'd had forever. I didn't take my phone because it was charging in the car. Didn't take my wallet because why would I? We were in the middle of nowhere, and I was just taking a leak. 10 minutes. That's how long I was in that bathroom, maybe less. When I walked out squinting in the Colorado sunshine, the parking spot was empty. Our dark green Suburban was gone. At first I thought they'd moved it playing some stupid prank. I walked around the entire rest area. Nothing. That's the thing about betrayal from your own blood. It hits different than any other kind. I waited an hour sitting on the curb telling myself they were just trying to scare me and would be back. People came and went, a few giving me weird looks. A trucker asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was waiting for my girlfriend who was in the bathroom. He nodded and left. After hour 2, I started to get that cold feeling in my gut. They weren't coming back. My first instinct was to borrow someone's phone, call them, beg them to come get me. But as I was about to approach a mom with 2 kids, something stopped me. A lifetime of memories flashed through my head. Every humiliation, every time they'd laughed at my expense, every joke that was really just cruelty with a punchline, I could almost hear them. Alan's voice, dude, I bet he's crying right now. My dad, he'll figure it out if he's not as stupid as he looks. My mom's weak protests, that didn't actually change anything. So I made a decision. I approached that mom and asked to use her phone, but I didn't call my family. I called information and got the number for the nearest shelter in Grand Junction, about 40 miles away. Then I asked her if she could possibly give me a ride into town, told her my family had an emergency and had to leave, but were sending someone for me later. She hesitated, but I must have looked harmless enough because she agreed. That first night at the shelter was a reality check. I had nothing but the clothes on my back, no ID, no money, no contacts. The shelter guy, Dave, let me use their computer to look up my uncle's address from the wedding invitation I'd seen. I thought maybe I could get to the wedding, find my family there, but then I sat staring at the screen and thought, why? Why chase after people who literally abandoned me on the side of the road for laughs? Instead, I created a new email account. I looked up resources for people who needed emergency ID replacement. I Googled jobs that pay cash. I made a plan. 2 days later, I was washing dishes at this little diner called Sonny's. The owner, Geraldine, was this 60 woman with purple streaked gray hair and more tattoos than you'd expect. I'd wandered in, asked if they needed help, told her my wallet was stolen but I needed work. She sized me up and said, "Dishwasher quit yesterday. You steal from me. You're dead. Start now, that's the thing about rock bottom. You can only go up from there. For a week I worked doubles, slept at the shelter, wore donated clothes. Dave helped me start the process of getting a replacement ID by contacting vital records in my home state. I set up a cheap pay-as-you-go phone from Walmart with the first cash I earned. 7 days after they abandoned me, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was my mother voice shaking. Where was I? Was I okay? They've been looking everywhere. Bullshit. It was just supposed to be a joke. Double bullshit. They waited down the road for 20 minutes, came back and couldn't find me. Triple fucking bullshit. I listened to her panic, her fake concern. In the background, I could hear my dad saying to tell me to stop being dramatic and get my ass to Uncle Rick's. I heard Alan laughing. Salvador, are you there? Say something. We've been worried sick. That cold feeling in my gut was gone. Now there was just clarity. You wanted to see if I could make it on my own, I said, my voice steadier than it had ever been when talking to So Watch Me. I hung up, blocked the number, then I blocked every family number I could remember. For good measure, I went into the Verizon store the next day and changed my number completely. 27 missed calls before I changed that number. I imagined them getting more and more pissed when they realized their punching bag wasn't coming back to be punched. A month later, I had my own studio apartment above a laundromat. It was tiny and smelled like fabric softener all the time, but it was mine. I worked my way up to prep cook at Sonny's, and Geraldine was teaching me how to properly chop vegetables without losing a finger. Sometimes I'd check my old email, the one my family knew, messages piled up from Mom, "Please come home. We're sorry." From Dad, "This childish stunt needs to end now." From Alan, "Dude, it was just a joke. Stop being such a pussy." I never responded. Not once. That's the thing about freedom. Once you've tasted it, there's no going back to the cage. Look, I won't pretend it was easy. Some nights I'd scroll through Instagram, see pictures of people with normal families who actually loved each other, and I'd feel this ache that no amount of fuck them could fill. I had nights where the loneliness felt like it would swallow me whole. Holidays were the worst, but every morning I'd wake up in my shitty little apartment that smelled like Downey. Go to my dishwashing job, where nobody called me worthless, and build my life one brick at a time. 3 months after they left me at that rest stop, I checked my email one last time. There was a new message from my mom. "Your grandmother is asking about you. Please just let us know you're alive." I closed the email, deleted the account through my old SIM card in the dumpster behind Sonny's. That night, Geraldine taught me how to make her famous apple pie, said I had good hands for pastry. It was the first genuine compliment I could remember getting in years. I never look back. Update 1. 5 years after being abandoned at that Colorado rest stop. I found myself staring at a familiar face on my Facebook feed. Not because I was stalking my family's profiles, okay, maybe I was, but because Alan had just been tagged in a local news article back home. He'd gotten a DUI, wrapped his car around a telephone pole. Nobody heard except the pole. The newspaper had used his high school football photo. He looked so young, so smug, nothing like the bloated mugshot underneath. That's the thing about karma. It moves at its own pace, but it never forgets an address. By then, I'd built something resembling a life in Colorado. My crappy studio above the laundromat had eventually been traded for a one-bedroom with actual windows. I'd worked my way up from dishwasher to line cook to assistant manager at SUNY's. Geraldine still ran the place with an iron fist and a flour-dusted glove. But she'd started treating me less like a charity case and more like IDK, a weird nephew or something. My first big purchase, when I had actual savings, was a decent laptop. Nothing fancy, just enough to take online classes through the community college. Business management, basic accounting, the stuff banks always said was for people who can't do real work. I'd spend my mornings at Sunny's, afternoon studying, evenings back at work, rinse and repeat. Look, I won't pretend I wasn't still messed up from what happened. Trust issues? More like trust subscriptions that I could cancel anytime someone got too close. I'd made exactly 2 friends in 5 years, my neighbor Doug, who played bass in a terrible garage band and sometimes brought me homemade beer that tasted like hoppy dishwater, and Geraldine, if she counted as a friend and not a boss. That changed when Kendra started coming into Sunny's. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork, always ordered the same thing. Denver omelet, no tomatoes, extra coffee, always sat at the counter with a textbook. Med school, I later found out. She had this way of completely zoning out while studying. 4 halfway to her mouth for minutes at a time. I started timing her once. Record was 7 minutes 23 seconds before she realized she was holding cold eggs. 4 months of me bringing her coffee refills before she actually looked up and saw me. I mean, really saw me. Her eyes did this thing where they widened just a little, and she said, my name tag was spelled wrong. It wasn't, but it became our weird little joke. I'd wear a different wrong name every Tuesday and Thursday. Salvador, Salvador, Salvador. She'd point it out. I'd act surprised. Stupidest flirting in human history. But it worked. Our first date wasn't even supposed to be a date. Her study group bailed last minute. She had a reservation at this pizza place it was impossible to get into, and I happened to be wiping down the counter when she got the cancellation text. Next thing I knew, I was sitting across from her at Antonio, both of us awkwardly realizing this looked exactly like a date. 6 months later, she moved into my apartment. A year after that, we got a slightly bigger place together. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom with a bathroom where the toilet didn't run constantly, and neighbors who didn't practice bass solos at 2 a.m. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on my family through fake accounts, not proud of it, but there it is. Dad's hardware store started struggling after the Home Depot opened on the edge of town. Saw him ranting about it on community Facebook pages, post getting increasingly desperate and bitter. Mom's social media became this weird shrine to family. Constant throwback pictures of us all smiling, posts about missing her boys, plural, which was rich. She'd tag Alan, but never mentioned me, like I had been erased. Alan bounced from job to job. Lots of vague booking about haters and new opportunities. The classic social media smokescreen of someone whose life is circling the drain. 3 years in Geraldine took me aside during inventory and told me she was thinking about opening a second location of Sunny's on the other side of town, asked if I'd be interested in running it, not owning running. Important distinction. I didn't sleep that night, kept thinking it was some kind of test or joke. People like me didn't get opportunities like that. Banks had made sure I understood that much. That's the thing about poisonous beliefs. They stay in your system long after you've escaped the snake. But I said yes because Kendra, half asleep beside me, mumbled that I'd be stupid not to, because Doug, through a haze of weed smoke when I mentioned it, said, "Duh, you practically run the original place already." Because Geraldine wasn't Banks, wasn't my family, and had never once made me feel like I was worthless. Sunny's East opened 6 months later, smaller than the original Different Menu My Menu. I worked 90-hour weeks that first year, lost 10 pounds I couldn't afford to lose, fought with Kendra about never being home, came home to passive-aggressive post-its on the fridge more than once. But it worked. People came back, the food was good, the vibe was good. We weren't getting rich, but we were making it. 4 years after being abandoned, I made enough to help Kendra with her med school loans, not all of them. Those things are monstrous, but enough to make a dent. She cried when I showed her the payment confirmation, not movie crying with perfect mascara tear, Real crying, snotty, red-faced, hiccuping crying. I'd never felt more like a real person than in that moment. Then my grandmother died. I found out through Facebook. Mom posted this long, dramatic tribute with a million heart emoji. Grandma Rose had been the only one in the family who ever stood up to Banks, the only one who seemed to see me. She used to slip me $20 bills when no one was looking. Tell me to save it from my escape. I think she meant college. Turns out it was more literal than that. I thought about going to the funeral, even looked up flights. Kendra said she'd come with me, hold my hand through the whole awful reunion. Doug offered his crappy hatchback if I wanted to drive instead. Geraldine just shrugged and said, "Dead people don't know if you're there or not, so do what brings you peace." I didn't go. Instead, I sent flowers, generic sympathy arrangement. Signed the card Salvador, no return address, no note, just my name. The explosion on social media was immediate, Mom posting about signs and reaching out from beyond. Alan making cryptic comments about prodigal sons, Banks saying nothing publicly, but I could imagine the storm behind closed door. A week later, I got a friend request from a profile I didn't recognize. Some random name, no posts, no friends. I almost deleted it until I saw the message. "Sal, it's Uncle Rick. Your mom gave me your old email, but it bounced back. Are you okay? We've been worried. Your dad has been asking around about you." I blocked the account. That night, I had my first panic attack in 2 years, sitting on our bathroom floor at 3 a.m., trying not to wake Kendra, feeling like my lungs were collapsing, imagining Banks hunting me down, showing up at Sunny's, distributed, destroying everything I'd built. Kendra found me there an hour later. Didn't ask questions, just sat with me, her shoulder touching mine. When I could finally breathe again, she said the simplest thing. "They can't take anything from you that you don't give them." The next morning, I called a lawyer, got advice on restraining orders just in case, tightened privacy settings on everything. Asked Geraldine to alert staff not to give out information about me to anyone. Practical steps control what you can control. 5 years to the day after being abandoned, I married Kendra. Small ceremony at a state park. Doug was my best man. Geraldine made the cake and cried through the whole thing, mascara running down her wrinkled cheeks. Kendra's large, loud family adopted me instantly. Her dad making dad jokes that somehow didn't make me flinch. Her mom hugging me without setting off alarm bells in my head. That's the thing about found family. Sometimes it finds you when you've stopped looking. A week after the wedding, scrolling through my dummy account late at night, I saw it. A post from Banks on a community page looking for information on my son Salvador. Last known location, Grand Junction, Colorado. Family emergency. There was a meeting. There was no emergency. I knew that much. What I didn't know was why after 5 years of nothing they were suddenly looking for me. So I dug deeper, created another fake account, joined the community groups from my hometown, pieced it together bit by bit. The hardware store had closed, their house was in foreclosure, Mom had some medical issues she was vague booking about, Alan had moved back home after his 3rd DUI. They weren't looking for me because they missed me. They were looking for me because they needed something. And you know what? For the first time in 5 years, I smiled when I thought about them. Not because I was happy about their misfortune, but because I realized something important. I didn't care anymore. I closed the laptop, crawled into bed next to my sleeping wife, and made a decision. I would keep watching from a distance, not out of hate, not out of love, but because sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do, it's what you build while they're busy destroying themselves. Finally, update. It started with a LinkedIn notification. 15 years after being abandoned at that Colorado rest stop, my carefully constructed life had a glitch. Someone had viewed my profile 27 times in one day. Not unusual for LinkedIn. Recruiters do weird stuff like that all the time. What was unusual was the name Alan Matthews, my brother. That's the thing about the past. It's patient. It'll wait in the tall grass for years before it strikes. By then, my life looked nothing like that first year in Grand Junction. Kendra had finished med school, done her residency, and now worked at a local clinic 3 days a week so she could be home with our kids more. We had 2, Ellie, 7, and Marcus, 4. The apartment above the laundromat had given way to a modest 4-bedroom on the outskirts of town. Nothing fancy, but with a yard where the kids could play and I could grow tomatoes that never quite turned out right. Sonny's had expanded to 3 locations, still not some massive franchise or anything, but enough that I didn't have to work the line anymore except when someone called in sick. Geraldine had semi-retired 2 years earlier, though she still showed up unannounced to criticize the way we made her pie crust recipe. I'd made peace with my past, or so I thought. I still kept tabs on the family from a distance, but the constant checking had faded to maybe once every few months. Last I knew, Banks and Irene had moved to a smaller place after losing the house. Alan had gotten married, divorced, then married again. They'd all seemingly moved on with their lives as I had with mine. The LinkedIn thing rattled me, though. 15 years of silence, and now this. I mentioned it to Kendra as we were doing our regular Sunday night thing, folding laundry while half watching whatever Netflix show we were currently behind on. She paused, a mismatched sock in each hand, and asked if I was okay. I nodded because what else could I say? That I was suddenly a 22-year-old again stranded at a rest stop? That I could feel Banks's voice in my head, calling me worthless? 3 days later, I was at Sonny's East, the original second location, helping with inventory because our supplier had sent the wrong kind of coffee filters again. When Maya at the front called back that there was some family asking for me, my first thought was Kendra's parents, who sometimes surprised us when they were passing through. I said I headed out front, mental gears already shifting to how to convince them to stay for dinner. It wasn't Kendra's family. Banks looked older, grayer, his formerly imposing frame somehow shrunken. Irene's face had that pinched look that comes from years of worrying. Her hair dyed an unnatural shade of brown, and Alan. Alan looked like Banks had at 40, same stance, same way of taking up space. There was a woman with them I didn't recognize. Young, maybe early 20s, hanging back like she wasn't sure she belonged in this moment. Nobody spoke. The lunch rush noise seemed to fade away until all I could hear was my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. Banks broke first, said my name like a question. I nodded because my voice had apparently gone on vacation. Look, I'd imagined this moment 1,000 different ways over 15 years. In some versions I told them off spectacular. In others I was cool and distant, unbothered by their existence. In a few embarrassing late-night scenarios, we even had tearful reconciliation. Reality is always messier than imagination. I gestured to an empty table in the corner, told Maya to bring waters, sat down across from the people who had once been my family, and waited. They'd found me through that magazine article, Rocky Mountain Rising 10 Local Success Story. It wasn't even a big feature, just a sidebar with a photo of me in front of Sonny's original location. But apparently one of Mom's friends from high school had moved to Colorado, seen it, and sent it to her with a, "Isn't this your son?" message? 107 missed calls. That's how many they'd made to my old number over the years before it was disconnected. Mom had kept count. She mentioned this like it was supposed to mean something. They talked over each other, Mom about how worried they'd been, Banks about how I'd misunderstood what happened that day, Alan awkwardly trying to act like we were old buddies catching up. The young woman, Alan's second wife, Poppy, it turned out, just watched me with curious eyes. I let them talk, watched them spin their version of reality where they weren't the villain. Noticed how Banks kept eyeing the restaurant, mentally calculating what it might be worth. Saw how Mom's hand trembled slightly when she reached for her water, caught Alan's practice charm slipping whenever he thought I wasn't looking directly at him. Finally, when they ran out of steam, I asked the only question that mattered. Why now? That's when the real story came out, in bits and pieces between awkward silences. Banks had medical bills, heart problems, no insurance. The second house was being foreclosed on too. Alan's business venture, something vague involving cryptocurrency, had failed spectacularly. Mom needed knee surgery she couldn't afford. They weren't there for reconciliation. They were there for money. I should have been angry. Should have thrown them out. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Pity. They looked so small, so desperate. These giants, who had once controlled my whole world, were just flawed, broken people. I invited them to dinner at my house that night, said I needed to think, to talk to Kendra. They agreed eagerly. Banks already halfway to considering it a done deal. That afternoon was surreal. I picked Ellie up from her dance class, helped Marcus with his preschool show and tell preparation, all while texting Kendra updates about who was coming to dinner. She offered to take the kids to her sister's. I said no, I won't. I wanted them there, wanted my family to meet my family. Dinner was chicken enchiladas, my specialty that wasn't really special. Just a recipe from the back of an old El Paso box that I'd tweaked over the years. Ellie set the table without being asked, carefully placing forks on the wrong side until Kendra quietly corrected her. Marcus insisted on wearing his Spider-Man costume because it was Tuesday, and apparently Tuesday was now Spider-Man Day. When the doorbell rang, I almost dropped the dish I was carrying to the table. Kendra squeezed my arm as she passed, whispered that she had my back no matter what. The kids looked up curiously, sensing something important was happening. That's the thing about moments you've dreaded. When they finally arrived, they're simultaneously worse and better than you imagined. Introductions were awkward. Banks kept calling Kendra Karen despite corrections. Irene couldn't stop crying whenever she looked at the kids, which was freaking Marcus out. Alan and Poppy were the least awful, making actual efforts at normal conversation, though Alan kept dropping hints about family helping family. After dinner, Kendra took the kids upstairs for baths and bedtime, giving me a look that clearly said, "Text if you need extraction." Then it was just me and them sitting in a living room that suddenly felt too small. Banks started in on the pitch, how family sticks together, how he'd always known I'd make something of myself, lie, how they just needed a little help to get back on their feet, $20,000 just alone, of course. I let him finish. Then I asked him if he remembered what he said to me on my 18th birthday. He looked blank, I reminded him, and, "At least you can't disappoint me anymore once you're not legally my problem." I asked Mom if she remembered what she did when Banks threw my acceptance letter to community college in the trash. Nothing. She'd done nothing. I asked Alan if he remembered telling my first girlfriend I was probably a faggot anyway. When she came to the house looking for me, they squirmed, made excuses. Banks started to get that dangerous edge to his voice that used to make me shrink. But here's the thing. I wasn't shrinking anymore. I was 15 years and a million miles from that person. I went to my office, came back with an envelope, handed it to Banks. Inside was a check for $73.50. Banks looked at it confused, asked what the hell this was supposed to be, I told him. In 220, that was exactly what a Greyhound ticket from Grand Junction to our hometown would have cost. The exact amount it would have taken for me to make it back home from where they abandoned me. The silence was absolute. Then Banks started shouting, called me ungrateful, selfish, said I'd always been a disappointment, the greatest hits album of my childhood playing one last time. I didn't argue, didn't shout back, just stood up and told them it was time to leave. Mom tried a different approach, tears, guilt. How could I do this to family? Alan went cold. The mask of friendly brother completely dropped. Poppy just looked embarrassed for all of them. When they finally left, Banks crumpling the check and throwing it on our front step, I closed the door and leaned against it, legs suddenly shaky. Kendra came downstairs, asked if I was okay. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We cleaned up the dinner dishes in silence, checked on the sleeping kids, got ready for bed like it was any other night. As I was setting the security system, I pulled up the front door camera on my phone. They were still in the driveway arguing, Banks gesturing wildly, Mom crying. Alan looking at our house with an expression I recognized too well, envy mixed with hatred. Finally, they got in their rental car and drove away. I've never seen or heard from them again. Don't expect to. The chapter is closed. That's the thing about revenge. The best kind isn't something you do, it's something you live. Every happy moment with my kids, every inside joke with Kendra, every quiet Sunday morning with nothing to fear, every single ordinary day in a life built on my terms. I never made it back home. I did something better. I built one.